Welcome to tonight's Ward 1 community meeting for Monday, January 22nd, 2024. I'm Bernie Schultz, and I'm the Ward 1 City Councilor for Fitchburg, hosting this meeting. Tonight we have Susan Davis on my left, Human Resources Director for the City of Fitchburg. And on the other side of Susan is Doug Bushman. He's the Executive Director of the Fitchburg Housing Authority. So they're going to both make presentations tonight, and then they'll answer questions. They'll be talking about the day-to-day operations and also about future projects, current projects and future projects. So we're going to start with Susan Davis. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Schultz, for inviting me to this meeting this evening. So I thought it'd be a good idea just to get a overview on a kind of high level of 2023, since we've obviously just ushered in 2024. It was definitely a busy year in my department. We hired 73 people, 44 were full-time positions. The other 29 were temporary or seasonal, so that covered the recreation positions such as lifeguards, splash park people, concession people, as well as 6 DPW positions. So as a matter of fact, we'll be starting to hire for lifeguards, and everything pretty quickly. It's already that time of year. One of those new hires, I'm very happy to say, was Gloria Laceno, who is in HR. So we added a third person to my department, which is definitely needed, and it's going to give us the opportunity to refocus on some things and then to get some things done that we haven't had the ability to do or the staffing to do in the past. In terms of contract negotiations, we have 10 contracts on the city side that I am responsible for, along with the appropriate or applicable department heads and then our labor council. So we settled 4 contracts, last year, which was the inspectors group and the wastewater treatment facilities group. Those fall under SEIU, which is the Service Employees International Union, Local 888, the library, and the Teamsters, which is Local 170, which covers the DPW. In terms of 2024, again, we've got some, with our third person, we are definitely posting positions right now. We have 7 that are open, that are posted on our website. So I'm probably going to say this a couple of times. If you are looking for a position, you know somebody that's looking for a career change, go to the city website, sign up for job alerts. Every time a job gets posted, you will get that in your email. That does not include firefighters or police officers. That is handled separately through civil service. But again, certainly we are always on the lookout for, for different additions to different divisions or departments. And again, as I mentioned, the lifeguards, those will be posted shortly as in addition to the DPW help for the summer. We've got a couple of contracts that we're going to be negotiating. One is with the clerical union and the other is with Mass Cops, which is actually the civilian police dispatchers as well as the airport personnel and parking control. We're looking at a great deal of training to be able to ramp that up. It's always a challenge for training because we need to conduct that online. It's tough to do face-to-face unless it is for department heads. As a matter of fact, just today I sent something out. We have training for department heads that will be coming up for FMLA, which is the Family and Medical Leave Act. So if somebody's out on a medical leave, there are certain things that need to be followed for that. Also, progressive discipline. Those will be the 2 topics that will be covered. That will be face-to-face because that's a smaller group. We do have Jonathan Thompson and Carrie Favalli, actually from the school department. They'll be attending as well. So we try to get as much bang for the buck as we can when we get, that many people in a room, which is good. In terms of the online training, everyone on the city side, as opposed to not including the schools, we have workplace diversity, unconscious bias, harassment, and conflict resolution that will be, again, done online. And that is, like I said, it's a bit of a challenge. For instance, like with the folks with the DPW, they don't have access to computers every day. They don't need that. So, there's always a bit of a challenge to get everybody scheduled in one particular location for that. We also are going to be working, obviously, with the new administration to find out if Mayor Squalia has goals that she'd like to see for our department. She's certainly hit the ground running, so I'm sure that we'll have some things that we're going to work on with her administration. One large project that I really would like to have completed, I am about 70% of the way done with our employee handbook. It has not been revised since 1998, so there are a lot of policies that needed to be updated. So we're working with the appropriate people to get that done. So I'm thinking that will be done by the end of the year at the latest. We also, it's always change, right? As soon as you get used to software, they're going to change it. So, of course, our applicant tracking software vendor has merged with someone else. So we are looking at changing that platform. But certainly it is fine because it all used to be manual. So, people would handwrite applications. And that was only about 8 years ago. So looking forward to that. And we'll continue to streamline hiring processes, such as the job requisition process, getting that more electronic. There are certainly, like I had mentioned, with the applicant tracking software, people can go online and obviously, apply online. There are definitely some processes that are still done manually, that we are updating and revising. So it's going to be it's always busy in HR anyway. And happy to say, like I said, we've got a third person in there. And again, go to the city website, sign up for job alerts, and share along with a friend. If you know, right now the DPW can be challenging. I certainly have to say we right now it's a couple of engineering positions. In particular, the civil engineer, it's a little tough to fill, but we've made great inroads with the prior administration as well as the city council to revise and update a lot of these contracts in terms of the salary rates because they were low. So I know certainly that the budget is always a big thing with our employment landscape right now, though. It has been wonderful to have people that are qualified that apply for these DPW spots or others. And it's not that, obviously, the people that we have here are qualified, but it takes quite a while to fill those positions. And now, because we've made it that we are competitive with other municipalities, that's certainly less of an issue. And it's very exciting when you get all of these applicants, and instead of really trying to choose, what can we go forward with and give some people time to get licenses, now we've got a number of people that apply. So that's been certainly a wonderful thing, kind of to deal with or experience with the city. So we do have a lot of things going on. I hope I covered everything. Does anybody have any questions about? Hello.
Yes, I was wondering if you would be willing to put in place a civilian review board. This is typically done to review officer-involved shootings. However, we have an excellent police department. We don't have many, if any at all, those incidents. What I would really like to see is something that covers all city employees, because certainly under the previous administration, a lot of people found if they had a concern, they had to file a complaint with the state, or they had to file a lawsuit in order to try to get it resolved. And I feel it would be better to have a civilian review board to handle these things in-house.
Are you referring to like, all different types of personnel matters, regardless of what those are, or?
Personnel matters that involve issues with the public.
I'm not aware, and that doesn't mean they don't exist. Obviously, I know that they do. I'm not aware of any municipalities that have that and the exact mechanics of it. I know that in many cases, when things come up and a complaint is, registered, it needs to be investigated, certainly by, and that needs to be an employee of the city that is investigating that, or labor council, or someone that we, hire to do so. So I'm not sure to what degree, because personnel matters are confidential. So I'm really not sure that would be possible. Sally.
Yes. Sally?
Hey, thank you. Susan, that was a really interesting presentation, and I was reflecting on the wide range of employment opportunities in the city of Fitchburg. We have employment opportunities for people who might have a high school diploma, and then of course those who have advanced degrees, advanced training, or doctorates. But my question to you really is, from my seat on the city council, your department intersects with our finance subcommittee, our legislative subcommittee as well. Do you intersect with other subcommittees that those of us on city council serve on? Because I always appreciate seeing you present. It just occurred to me, like, I knew those two, but are there others that you intersect with? Economic development at all? Is that ever?
I don't believe so. I mean, it's really more just in terms of finance, with the contracts, and some with the legislative. However, if there's an opportunity, or if there are questions, and if a committee wanted me to, certainly come, absolutely, I would be more than happy to do that.
Okay, and my other question is a quickie, and you guys may not have. What is the number of employees we have in the city? I know that the school department is our largest sort of subset, but around what is that number?
So on the city side, we have 379 full-time employees, and that goes up to somewhere around 430 in the summer. And actually that doesn't include, I shouldn't say that, 379 on full-time, 17 part-time employees, which is primarily in the library. The pages, the library assistants, and those folks. And then, like I said, we usually add around 30, 35 people at most during the summer months. Overall, it's around 1540, 1550, I believe, total.
Thank you. And part-time jobs, does that lead people who might start in a part-time job? Do they, if they become vested, do those part-time hours count towards their sort of years?
It can, yeah. I'm sorry. It can. When we've had a couple of people that have been part-time and then transitioned into a full-time position. They can, and I don't want to go too far because I'm not in the retirement department, but they have the ability to buy back that time, and it goes toward their creditable service, which you need 10 years of service to be fully vested with the city. But they do have the ability to do that. Yes. Oh, you're welcome.
Susan, you mentioned workplace diversity. Maybe you were talking about a program that you were looking into and maybe implementing. Do you have any more information about that?
So we at one point, and Councilor Schultz was involved with that, I'd really like to be able to sort of redirect our focus and get back to looking at a diversity and equity and inclusion advisory committee. So, and we had looked at having some folks from the community, obviously from the city as well, the city council. I think, Sally, actually you would come to that meeting as well. And that is to have some meaningful actions that are going to take place in looking at diversity. I think, I know Jonathan Thompson, when those folks were here in December, had mentioned it really needs to be a collaboration, whether it's through city departments and certainly community stakeholders and just people in the community to figure out really what can help in terms of attracting employees and certainly the retention. And I think that we had looked at starting to put that into place. I definitely would like to be able to do that. Councilor Zarella, Councilor Cruz, and you, right? Was there any?
Yeah. Yeah, we were looking at a survey at the time.
Yes. So I know Councilor Zarella was going to help us or have his dad's company donate that time to looking into a survey in terms of, we need to start that not only with our community, but also within the city, within city departments. So how to effectively reach out to different communities. What does that look like? To whom do we do that? Involving different religious groups to find out how do we get to certain segments of our population. Certainly we don't all reflect, all departments don't reflect our demographics in the city. We are certainly working on that. Police and fire, I honestly have to say, I think probably are the most diverse in terms of their numbers. But again, it's going to take certainly some work and some ingenuity and some just brainstorming to figure out how do we attract every different ethnicity. But yeah, so we definitely would like to get that. And Mayor, I almost said Councilor, Mayor Squalia and I have talked about that already and how we're going to, get that moving. As a matter of fact, somebody from her office, Miles Phillips Wilcox, is going to be the liaison with the Human Rights Commission. And they met previous to this meeting tonight. And that's a great start to really be able to get the right people at the table to figure out how to do that. It is difficult. Every community is struggling with that in terms of how to best get the right people at the table to figure out what's going to be a good solution and something that's going to be meaningful and worthwhile, something that's going to give us some good results.
There was another term you mentioned during your presentation, progressive discipline. Maybe you could shed some light on that as well.
So progressive discipline is normally something that is in a union contract. There are typically 4 steps to progressive discipline. So if you have an employee that's having a little bit of a problem maybe with something, your first course of action is you're going to give them a verbal, you're going to have a conversation with them. Then if that same activity continues, it moves to a written warning. Then if that continues, then there may be a suspension, which is an unpaid suspension. Then next, if that same pattern of behavior continues, you may be looking at parting ways, with that employee. Generally, that is the way progressive discipline works, and it definitely certainly we have questions that will come up at different points. in time with different managers, especially if you have new managers or department heads. And certainly every discipline situation is different. And we want to make sure that we're doing right by the employee as well as protecting the city.
Thank you, Susan. Any other questions from the audience for Susan? Okay. Thank you very much, Susan.
Thank you.
We'll move on to Doug Bushman, the Executive Director of the Fitchburg Housing Authority. Doug,
Thank you.
you have the floor.
Get out of here.
Thank you, Councilor Schultz. I want to thank you, Mayor Squalia, for coming, and Chief Martineau, and Councilor Cragen for coming tonight, and everybody here. You're coming out on a Monday night. Is it Monday? Yes. And these are great events, Councilor. Thank you for having this, and thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome, Doug.
So I'm the Executive Director of the Fitchburg Housing Authority. And what is a housing authority? Housing authorities were created in the 1930s to deal with the Great Depression, homelessness, and other issues. And there was also a jobs program. Congress tried to put as much money into public works as possible, roads and bridges and buildings. And they looked at building housing as a great way to employ carpenters, bricklayers, architects, every skill you can think of to build housing, and the administration side as well. And how the program is crafted, they're all local. They're called local housing authorities. And in Massachusetts, the mayor gets to pick 4 of the 5 governing members, and the governor picks the 5th one. So there's a high level of local control, and that's why they're called local housing authorities. The Fitchburg Housing Authority has over 515 units in 5 major developments, and we have 6 of scattered sites. And we're the largest landlord in the city of Fitchburg. And we're considered a large housing authority. Not as large as Worcester, but we're still considered a large housing authority. Our budget is around $6 million every year, but we also have Section 8 vouchers as well, which is a federal program. And we have around 23 employees. What is very unique about Fitchburg is that 99% of our public housing is state public housing, so there's a high level of local control. And we have very, very limited of HUD public housing. And there's only 4 states in the country that have state public housing. And I actually loved the program. And I'll give you an example of why. Last Tuesday, I received a phone call at 2:30 in the morning. I usually get up at 3, so like, why is my phone ringing? And when your phone rings at 2:30 in the morning, it's never that you won the lottery or something good has happened. So I raced for the phone, woke up my dog. She was not happy. And it was one of our great maintenance staff. They were at the C.J. Durkin building, and it was we had a rainstorm that night. Water was coming through the ceiling, and the fire department was there, and they were going to shut the building down. And I raced up. My maintenance staff was up there. Thankfully, we were able to divert the problem, and we didn't shut off the electricity, the main power. My maintenance staff did a phenomenal job. My director of facilities, my director of housing also was there because we'd have to do massive relocation. Called up the mayor as well. She gave some great suggestions, and we reached out to the fire department for that. And I made another phone call to my partners in Boston, and they gave me authorization to do emergency procurement to fix the problem. The day after that, they showed up to inspect, and I got the approval to go out and to spend up to $100,000 without going through the procurement process to fix the immediate leaks. Now, if this was HUD public housing, it really would be all on me and my team. So the state public housing program is phenomenal. I've got a partner in Boston. We have partners, and they want us to succeed, and it's great. And we have a great state senator, a great state rep, and they work with the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, formerly DHCD. So it's a great program. Now, I have a big passion for affordable housing, a big passion. There was this boy many years ago. He grew up in this fantastic community. It was a housing complex. There were great places for people to play. It was intersect with elderly and families. And it was a place where families can go, save up some money, so they could purchase a house and move on. Now, years later, and that little boy was me, and I thought I was actually one of the richest people in Meriden, Connecticut. I lived in this great community. And it wasn't until years later I found out that I grew up in affordable housing. It was a place where my father could go to work, my mother can continue her education before she became a teacher. And I bring that passion to what I do. And we're trying to create communities for the elderly and for families that reflect the best that we could provide. Now, I started in 2019. I'm going to move away. In 2019, we began independent operations. Leominster had managed us, and the board had made a good decision in 2014 to merge with Leominster. In 2019, they were more stable, and we began independent operations. 2023, we did a lot of management refinements, a lot of grant writing. And beginning in 21, we added more resident services. And really in 2022, we began the construction phase of the new Fitchburg Housing Authority. Canton Valley, we just had the 65th anniversary was last year. We put over $4.5 million into Canton Valley, and it's a beautiful property. It's the first one of our modernization campaign. And if you've ever had a chance to drive by the Canton Valley property, it is absolutely unique. It won an award in 1962 for the architectural design. And the 65th anniversary occurred exactly 65 years prior when the property was built. We wanted to time it. And it's a gem. And we fought with we worked with the state to get as much money as possible and a lot of amenities. We actually added 3 units of ADA housing, and there was no ADA housing before at Canton Valley. And we have concrete sidewalks throughout the property. And I am partial to concrete, and I love concrete. I think it looks great. My maintenance staff, they get, we got to use special salt. I go, use the special salt. I don't care. You got concrete. But Canton Valley is a gem, not just for the Fitchburg Housing Authority, for the people of Fitchburg. I'll just move the other. Now, the next major construction project that's going to happen is the Wallace Tower modernization. We just finished we are almost finished with the 3rd phase of the modernization, and that is installing air source heat pumps. Wallace Tower is, I think, the biggest building in the Twin City area. It was built in 1974. Concrete design. And the first phase was the exterior. The second phase was the air source heat pumps. And now the 3rd phase, which will be going out to bid, is going to be a $14 million redo. And we're going to expand the first floor. We're going to push out. It's going to have a community room. It's going to have a medical reception area, expanded offices, a security guard area for the front lobby. And we're going to have 2 floors of walk-in showers. We're going to abate all the asbestos in the building. This is going to be a gem for the people of Fitchburg. This is when this is done, it's going to be amazing. And we're going to start construction this year. We'll probably finish construction at the end of 2025. And this is, when all said is done, all 3 phases, you're looking at probably $22 million of investment, with Unitil kicking in $750,000 for the air source heat pumps. We label this Wallace Tower as an aging in place building. And many of you, some people may live there, many of the people that live there, if not most, are from Fitchburg. And it's a gem. And when we're done, this is going to be something really proud that the staff has done, and that what the workers have done, and it's going to be just a great asset for the city. And you got to look at it as a retirement community for those of low and moderate income families. And in Massachusetts, a moderate income is actually quite high. to live in these facilities. So it's not like you have to make a lot less. Actually, the income is actually quite high. The next major project after mod phase, well, we're going to get the roof done at Durkin, hopefully before that, is Green Acres. And a couple years ago, we received around $10 million to redo Green Acres. And we sold the new Green Acres, that Green Acres is the gateway to a gateway city. And Green Acres is actually located in one of the prime major areas of going into Fitchburg. You can't get to downtown Fitchburg from the highway without going past Green Acres. And we have a vision of redoing it and making it a very livable community. But more importantly, we want to turn it into workforce housing. We want to turn it into an area where parents, guardians of children, whoever lives there, there's incentives for them to renew their education, enter the workforce, and be part of the community. And workforce housing is kind of what I grew up in the 60s and 70s. And we want to change some of the regulations. We want to reward work and education, because we don't want to see families live there for generations and not engage. Most of you here have worked or work. It's difficult for most of us to imagine people who have not entered the workforce. We want to change that with incentives. And we think that we have a really great way of doing that. We call it the ABLE program, a better life experience. And we want this to be the model for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for family public housing. And let me just show you another. And throughout the new Green Acres, we're going to have playgrounds, modern playgrounds for children. We're going to have a main playground area in the back. The main admin building is going to be located between Canton Valley and Leyte. And Green Acres, when it was built in 1948, for people it was for veterans housing only. Leyte, Normandy was for the Atlantic Theater. And Leyte, I didn't know this, I was a World War II buff, I didn't know this, but Leyte was the biggest naval battle in world history in World War II. And back in the 1940s and 50s, if you moved into Green Acres, they actually published your name in the newspaper because people wanted to make sure you didn't sneak in through getting help from maybe a city councilor or a politician. But it was a very prestigious to live at Green Acres. But in the 1970s, though, the World War I and World War II generation had moved on, and it was no longer used as veteran housing. As one of the things to remake Green Acres, we want to dedicate a building just for veterans. That's part of it. And we also want to have ADA housing. Right now, the Fitchburg Housing Authority has no ADA housing for families. And we received we work very closely with the mayor's office. We received a referral for a family needing ADA housing. We don't have that option. We don't have it. This great concept would actually take down 3 buildings and create ADA housing. We have the money secured for the community administration building, and we actually secured some local ARPA money because we're going to have a micro library, we're going to have a health center, and we're going to have classrooms in this new community admin building. We've got commitments from Fitchburg State University, workforce development, to conduct classes and help people, and we're going to have a daycare youth center so parents and guardians can drop their children off if they're going to work or if they're continuing their education. Now, some people may say, why should we do this? I didn't need that help, and I understand that. I am a taxpayer, and I get that. But the reality is that Green Acres has the largest concentration of underemployed and unemployed people. It has some other social issues as well. And when we're done with the new Green Acres, we can target and break that cycle of poverty and actually get people to work. And we got a lot of great success stories at Green Acres. A lot of great things. I should address the basements and the water. An ongoing issue. We did a fix 2 years ago to the tune of over $3 million. The fix didn't fix it. It made it worse. And we have a project right now which will probably cost triple of the fix to address the water in the basement. And this has been an ongoing issue for decades. But I got a great team of 23 people, dedicated. We work, I'll be honest with you, I was in the office yesterday. We work 7 days a week. Running a housing authority is, it's not for the faint of heart, but it's a job I love. I could be sitting at my desk working on something or jumping at my desk when the mayor calls, working with the police and the fire department, city councilors. I love what I do. I pinch myself every day. Now, the Housing Authority has a new venture. The Housing Authority board took over the board of the former Our Father's House. So legally, the FHA board is the Board of Opportunities for Hope, which is the new name for Our Father's House. I am so proud of my board and my staff for jumping in. Our Father's House was falling apart. And we had leased them a building, 76 Mechanic Street. And I told my board and a group of phenomenal people, chaired by Chairwoman Linda Byrne, that if we don't step in, this really could go bad. And my staff as well, there was a lot of groaning on this, a lot of hard work. And I got to tell you, we've turned it around. We still have some issues to deal with. We've opened up the Lunenburg Street shelter, not as individuals, for families, and we have some other assets. And we're still working out the kinks as any new program. But I have to tell you, what my staff did in December, getting those shelters up and running, we were working 10 hours a day, almost 7 days a week. I couldn't be prouder of them. Mistakes have been made? Sure they have, but we will revisit them and we will move forward. But my board did a phenomenal job. I think Linda is watching this, so maybe I should say she's great one more time. But, and there's been a lot of tension with the staff of doing this, but any new venture comes with wrinkles. Nothing is done. We don't, when you run a housing authority or any government agency, we don't aim for perfection, because I will get nothing done. But I want to thank you all for coming here. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, Councilor.
This was really informative and very rich in detail, especially on the history. I remember when Wallace Towers was constructed, and that whole part of Fitchburg has Punch Brook underground, has a lot of water. I mean, you don't see the culverts, but I know when Stratton Players was still a building there, every March we would get, the floods coming through. So I'm glad that these, efforts are being made. Could you talk a little bit more, though, about the ABLE program, A Better Life Experience? Is this happening elsewhere in the state? Is this federally funded? How did Housing Authority come across this, and how did the implementation work?
So 2019, when we started grant writing, we probably hit $30 million of new money coming in. And for like Wallace Tower, the competitive advantage was there's no parking. Okay, so let's turn it to an aging in place. For Green Acres, it was called the Public Housing Innovation Program, a state funded. And you had to combine physical improvements with a social aspect. So we came up with this A Better Life Experience. Most family self-sufficiency programs, once you graduate, they cut you off. And that's why they have a very low participation rate. The Fitchburg Housing Authority last year received an FSS Family Self-Sufficiency Grant Award for Section 8 voucher holders. But participation is difficult because the voucher holders are scared, because you're saying to me, if I complete this program and it's great, I'm going to lose my voucher. They don't look at that as self-sufficiency. They look at that, as something scary. It's a federal program and those are the rules. So we try to tell them, but in the long run, you're better off. But it's difficult. So we came up with something a little bit different. that if you go through the ABLE program, which is education, maybe address domestic violence, substance abuse issues, getting a job, when you graduate from the program, we're not going to cut you off immediately. We're going to phase in that new income. So you have a couple of years of stable housing. From the Housing Authority's perspective, I'm getting a resident that I think is more stable. They're paying their rent. They have a goal in mind. There's going to be less turnover, probably less damage to the property because now they're actually earning an income. City of Fitchburg is getting residents who are working more. We're decreasing the poverty rate. And the state is getting something better because this family is off because they're probably on food stamps, other relief. The drawback is that under the current regulatory program, if your income goes up, your rent goes up dramatically, then you're booted out. But the reality is we're going to have a more stable population, and society is going to have a better citizen. And I call this philosophy liberal means, I'm using the government, to create a conservative end, which is, and I'm using the common definition of political ideology, somebody that's getting up, working, going to school, being a productive citizen. And, again, there's people out there who would say, no, they got to go to work, we're going to cut everything off. Well, that may be the best policy idea, but that's not the world that Doug lives in right now or we live in. And the state loves the idea. They just absolutely love it. And they're just waiting for us to come up with the regulatory language to actually modify that so they would give us a regulatory exemption to allow an increase of income based on new employment income. But if we can crack the poverty issues and the substance abuse and domestic violence issues at Green Acres, that's the crux of the problem in Fitchburg. And we could do that. I know we can. We're going to have a meeting in a couple of weeks about additional investments at Green Acres because we need that to complete this project. And it really will be transformative. All the buildings on Winusinok, I finally was able to pronounce that right after being here a couple of years. And Water Street, the plan is that the facades will be beautified. They will look aesthetically more pleasing. New sidewalks, concrete. And a community admin building will anchor Canton Valley and Green Acres. And so that means that Doug can walk out of his office and walk the sidewalks looking for my great maintenance staff and other staff. And all my housing staff, I know some of them are watching, they'll just be 1 minute away from my office, so I could always find them. But we're excited about this. And we think that this could be a model for the entire Commonwealth. And I'm sorry for that long response, Counselor.
I'm a little sad you didn't bring the ABLE board with the graphics. I'm going to share that with.
Yes.
How does the Housing Authority and all of these new homes and new areas that you're beautifying and opening up, expanding, work with the homeless population, the true chronic, temporary and chronic homeless population?
Really good question. About 4 years ago, the state rolled out this CHAMP system. It's a common application for public housing. Before, you would apply at your local housing authority for housing, and we had a ranked preference system. And now the state has a statewide application system. And most homeless shelters have access to the CHAMP system. It's an online system. You can do a paper application, but it's mostly online. And what I've learned in the last couple of weeks is the emergency application system, EA. So Massachusetts has really two types of housing. We have emergency housing, which is, it's an emergency. Those are the shelters that we have. You literally are living in the woods. You're living in a tent. That's the EA system. Then we have CHAMP, which is more of a longer-term housing solution. If you're living in public housing, you can live there forever, as long as you can pay the rent and follow the rules. Emergency housing under the EA system is temporary shelter housing.
And that population has no interface with any of these.
If they apply, they do. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
I'm just wondering, this is terribly cold weather. I mean, this weekend was unbelievably cold. Where do people, obviously, I'm sure we have a homeless population here in Fitchburg. Where do they go? Is it anything under your department, under the Housing Authority, or does it fall under another authority altogether?
So the city of Fitchburg has a warming shelter at 76 Mechanic Street. The Housing Authority owns the building, and Opportunities for Hope leases it from us. And we have a lease agreement with the City of Fitchburg Health Department, and we've been running the warming center. I think the doors opened up 3 weeks ago, Mayor Squally.
Second?
I think that's correct. And it's based on a temperature gauge. And I think at least 20, there's room for 20 people to go there when it's very cold.
But just for the day, not for night?
Not for night. No, they would stay until it warms up. And the City of Fitchburg Health Department, Sue Christensen and that great team there with Steve Curry, they actually oversee that.
So it doesn't fall under the Housing Authority at all?
Not directly. We just have the facility. Yes, sir.
Not to have any plans for all the immigrants that possibly could come here. We could get overwhelmed.
Great question. There's been a lot of interesting information out there. The shelter that we opened up in Lunenburg Street, it was empty when we opened it up.
That's the father's house that's on the hill?
Yes, the former, yes. Nobody lost their housing. Everybody at 76 Mechanic Street was offered a housing option or a program option. Lunenburg Street was empty. The stats is that for Fitchburg, we have, under the FHA, the percentage of immigrants coming into Fitchburg is probably the lowest of any city its size in the Commonwealth. I'll give you an example. Hudson, around 40,000 people, Marlborough, around 40, 50. They've taken in almost 200 families each. We are capped at, we only have, in Fitchburg, I only have 10 rooms. And we are solidifying our process with the City of Fitchburg school system to take in as many local families, and we are actually having a meeting scheduled shortly to get that funnel system more defined. So nobody's being kicked out of public housing to make way for any other population. Legally, I couldn't do that.
There's a lot of people in the whole state now. They're getting worried because the governor is talking about putting the immigrants into people's homes.
I can't speak for the governor.
Would the mayor here have more power than let's say the governor says, Fitchburg's going to take X amount of people and we need to find housing. So I heard that she's getting people to go around to see what your living conditions are. Like if you had 4 bedrooms and you just had one couple in there, you'd have like 3 spare bedrooms. Now, does she have enough power to say people are going to take these people in? If this doesn't stop what's going on at the border, we're going to be overwhelmed. There's no getting out of that. There seems to be no slowing it down, and it's picking up now. It's getting, and the people are really, if you go around, people are really nervous talking about this.
I think that would be a violation of our constitutional rights.
Well, it
Nobody
would,
seems to worry
it would,
about that.
but here's the thing that the government's been doing. They're going to try to do it on a voluntary basis, but they're going to know who's refusing this, and they'll probably do something to make their life miserable. I mean, these people have got to be placed someplace.
Well, once there's a place in Jagger, up on Betty Spring Road, where all evicted come up there, because even though they were getting free food, they'd show up at any function that was happening up there on Betty Springs Road, and interrupt weddings, meetings, and everything else. So they are no longer up there.
Well, here's another problem. Here's another problem that they have. A lot of these people are coming in, they have inspection, they have all of these different diseases, they get some kind of bug or something. They can't keep any help. All the help is just quitting because they're worried about getting sick. None of them, everybody was almost told to get a vaccine, but yet these people don't get vaccines. They're bringing them all over the country. It's really getting, people get real nervous.
Yeah, and I agree. And there's a lot of false information that's presented. And but all I can tell you is the Fitchburg Housing Authority has never told anybody to leave to make way for anybody. We just don't do that.
It keeps.
Yeah.
There's only so much paper in the country. They're coming in. They don't even know how many. The ones that they catch, there's a whole bunch that just get through that. They have no idea. These people are coming in with diseases from other countries we don't even have in this country. And from what I understand, up in Gardner, there's a place over there where there's all kinds of bugs or something in the people, and the employees that work in these places are quitting because they're afraid of this stuff.
I was actually teaching a lot of those students, and there was no bugs or diseases in Gardner. Actually, I was at the college teaching a lot of those immigrants that were staying at the motel, so I wouldn't worry about that at all.
That goes to a deeper point, and not to continue on, because obviously the housing authority isn't impacted, but I'll ask the city council and the mayor, maybe we need a good media source, because what we're getting is rumor mill, and we're getting it spread on social media.
And I think Mayor Squally is going to address that, Mary. She's working on communication.
I think it needs to be factual communication, and because what's running rampant is rumor. Social media.
Well, I try my best to share the accurate information in the city of Fitchburg. Yeah, when it comes to individuals, cities, and what is happening, I might not be fully aware, but if I can learn anything there, I'll absolutely share that information.
Sally, you had your hand up first.
Thank you.
I did. Yeah, I'm gonna take screenshots of all of these schematics. But so you mentioned 6 additional public housing. Does that include that really interesting multifamily, sort of brown and white? Is it Lake Road where the houses go like this? What are the smallest public housing units? Because I know Wallace Towers would be the largest. And then the one on the Pritchard facility. But what are the smaller ones?
We have a scattered site program of 9 single-family homes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Matter of fact, Fitchburg was one of the first, I think, in the 80s to actually jump onto that program. We've renovated 2, and we switched them over to the federal side. We have a third one on Milk Street that's almost completed its renovation, and it's a beautiful property. We actually fought to keep they have stained glass windows in there. One thing that we've done on the construction side, we've really gone the extra mile on the amenities and the look. One of the reasons that public housing started going down was in the 60s, there was a, and I'm not sure, Mayor, what the proper term, there was a percentage of the design for making it a beautiful building. In the 60s, they took that money away, and they really made it kind of an ugly construction style, and who wants to live next to that? It's like in Canton Valley, we fought for the aesthetics, the flagpole, sitting areas, and a lot of things that you don't normally see. We fought for it because we want people, you, the taxpayers, when you drive by or visit somebody, hey, you can be proud of this. The community room is phenomenal. It's government working at its best. Yes?
And the Hastings Hall, is that within your purview?
No.
What entity is in charge? Because Hastings Hall is really one of our premier buildings, and it was originally designed for working girls who were either at the state normal school or working in the mills. So it had, when it was first built in the 1890s, space for 17 girls. Who's in charge of that one?
I don't know.
Private boarding home.
We do own Pritchard Place, Fitchburg Place.
Right.
with another entity. We owned 1%. It used to be all of the housing authorities, but 14 years ago there was an issue with construction, and we own that with Wynn Management. And in 2063, we get it back, and I will be there when we get it back. I want that building back. I'll be 98. I will get it. Yes.
Regarding the old Our Father's house, what is the process and the requirement to get in there? How would you apply if you needed to go there?
The emergency application system, EA.
Okay. Is it just for families or anybody?
Families.
Just families. So a single homeless person would not be able to go in there?
No, they would not be able to.
And what funds that facility?
State funded.
State funded. Okay.
A single unhoused person would apply with SMOC. They would do the EA system as well, but SMOC would handle that.
Okay. Thank you.
Jacqueline?
Yeah, so as everyone knows, we have a severe housing crisis, and I would think we would want to maximize the number of units we have for people to stay in. And what I'm hearing from you is that you're actually decreasing this. We already know that you're using some units to store your files in, because WBUR took some shots of that. And now I'm hearing you want to take down 3 buildings at Green Acres and replace them with just 1 building. And a lot of the space will not go for housing people, but you want a fancy administration building for yourself, you want a library, you want a health center, you want a daycare. You've already got daycares that duplicate the work done by 21st Century Program. It seems like you just don't get it.
That's a great question. So let's break it down. The article that you talked about, that article really set housing changes in motion. And I was so proud that they contacted me because they heard about the ABLE program. And you're absolutely right. There's at least 4 units we're using for offices. The administrative burden on housing authorities has just grown over the last couple of decades and the staffing needs. And one of the reasons the state loves the ABLE program is that once we're completed in that fancy admin community building you talked about, which is going to have a micro library for children, a health center, classrooms for children, for adults, is we're going to be able to take some of the current apartments we're using as offices and repurpose them back to their original intent. Right now, to build an elderly apartment, 500 square feet, the cost is $400,000. So when we presented our ideas to the state that we could repurpose back, I think it was 9 apartments, they jumped all over that. So you're absolutely right. It's not right that we're using apartments for offices and for records. I have records I have to store forever. I mean, we've gone through 3 rounds of record destruction using the process. But I have to keep those records. I have to have office areas for staff. But we have a plan. Like, I'll be honest with you, we're the only housing authority in the Commonwealth that actually came up with a plan to get these offices back as apartments. So that was a great article. I'm glad you read that.
Okay, I guess we're, Doug, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we conclude tonight? I just want to announce that the next Ward 1 community meeting is going to take place on Monday, February 12th, 2024. And Doug, I thank you very much for your presentation and answering the questions.
Thank you for having me, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.